Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, July 1st. We're on the European account, and some cards are now wild and can't be played in standard. We've already looked at these, so yeah, things are changing on the cards side. I already got the reward though. So let's re-roll this 50. Let's see. Shaman, Warlock, Druid, Hunter, Rogue, Warrior. Oh, this sucks. We got a lot of victories we need, and we can now open these card packs because there are new classic cards in the card packs. We're not gonna sit on these card packs for that long. Although I guess as soon as we get all the new classic cards again, we could start sitting on classic card packs for larger streams, larger card pack opening streams. That being said, I've pretty much come to the decision that as soon as the Marvel game enters beta, we're gonna move over to that and give up on Hearthstone. I guess if people put a bunch of comments down and say, no, we love your Hearthstone content as it is now, which is barely me playing Hearthstone and me talking about games that came out on Steam and news, then I would stick with Hearthstone just out of popular demand. But otherwise, I think Marvel would be way more entertaining for everybody involved. Let's start with Hunters. Not is an option, so let's start with that. We also don't have a lot of news today, so we have a game here like Fairy Tale Solitaire, Little Red Riding Hood. Playing a solitaire game these days doesn't make a lot of sense, even if it's $2.99. Particularly when you're trying to make a whole series around different fairy tales. That could be quite a few of them, so yeah. There's nothing here that would make me put this on the fall list. It's $2.99 discounted, supports a bunch of languages. Let's see. We gotta hold on to that one, but get rid of everything else. We already talked about this, but I'll mention it again. Gamma Sutra has an article. Just Cause Dev Avalanche partners with Nitro Games on a new mobile project. It seems, from my perspective, very odd and sad that a developer that makes Just Cause, a 3D open world physics game, is moving to making a mobile game. Like, it seems like particularly Avalanche should have been in charge of developing the new Prey game, and they probably would have made Prey a lot better if they had done that. So yeah, but that didn't happen, so now they're making mobile games. Why did I bring up this guy's Twitter account? Looking at a guy's Twitter account, but I don't see a reason why I brought it up or opened it. It must have been a retweet or something he did. Let's see, tweets and replies. Oh, okay. So, a series of a story came out that one of the games by at least by the several developers, but in this case we'll say this developer Rami Ismail was so upset that their game's keys were being sold on G2A that they said just pirate the game instead, which is an interesting stance to take. Certainly is that they're saying they're not making any money whatsoever from the sales of G2A keys in particular, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, or if they know whether that's true or not, but they're at the point of frustration with GTA that they say if you're going to buy something on GTA, just pirate the games instead. Oddly, he also has another story here. Sony says GameIndustry.biz, which is not a site I follow anymore, is quoting Sony as saying the PlayStation 5 is a niche product for hardcore players. I think that's a weird stance for them to take, for sure. But whatever, I guess if that's the stance they want to take, that's the stance they want to take. This might be a case of Sony of Japan saying that the PlayStation 5 is a niche product for hardcore players. It definitely would be weird, though, to try and understand Sony's perspective on that from a Japanese perspective, because really then what they're saying is that, well, Sony's the niche product and everybody else just buys a Switch or plays on their cell phone, and they're trying to make almost excuses for the PlayStation 5 that hasn't even been released yet. I think if you were to ask Microsoft, they wouldn't make the same statement. They wouldn't say that that the Project Scarlet is a niche product for hardcore gamers. They would say it's a product that they would want to see in the hands of many types of gamers, including casual gamers. It's been a while since G2A has come up as controversy. There's one specific YouTuber I know that still uses them as a sponsor, and I can't really blame people for doing that, frankly. It makes a lot of sense to stick with a sponsor if it's making you money, even if it is a sponsor that's a little bit controversial, when YouTube itself has created this huge monopoly in its streaming service by promising to pay content creators and then reneging on that promise completely, with demonetizations and ridiculous rules that nobody can understand or follow, or just other issues or problems with their platform that end up causing you to not get any views.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Next game we have on Steam is called Battlegrounds 3, which clearly is trying to do some name confusion for like PUBG. There was a story, I think I already talked about it, of how PUBG is working on a PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds spin-off style game that would not be so much a battle royale. This early access free-to-play game supports English only. Even though it does have a somewhat decent visual polish to it, there's not going to be a game here that I would want to cover. Mostly because it's multiplayer only and free-to-play, but I don't think too many people are going to want to play it anyways. Although, it is getting positive reviews, so I guess if you want a colonial, a Civil War style, no, this would be the Revolutionary War, wouldn't it? So, if that interests you, it's there. This and
ooh, I wonder what this does.
There we go. We should be able to win here. Next we have a game on Steam here called Elder Vale, which is tagged early access. Looks like there might be a game here, although this might just be a horror game. Asset flip horror game. Seems like you're playing as this oddly lengthy armed, skinny kind of puppet. Like super skinny character, which that might be an art style. And it seems like you're running around a lot of dark spooky things, and there's a lot of dark screenshot syndrome happening here. But feels like there might actually be a game to this. Looks like you're shooting things, looks like you're avoiding fires, looks like you're running. It looks like a real game, in at least parts. Feels like it's heavily inspired by Silent Hill. But, you know, a Silent Hill clone these days wouldn't be terrible. Early access, $9.99, English only. I'll put this on the follow list and see if it gets enough reviews to make Elder Vale potentially considerable. It maybe is nothing. Maybe, very possibly it's an asset flip game, but I'll give it a chance. Alright, that's one victory. Let's go for two. Tech Raptor has an article here. PUBG PC version adds new vehicle, weapon, and console versions grows closer to parity. So, PUBG is getting updates. Speaking of PUBG, you know, it's a little odd, for as popular as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has been, that there haven't been more articles around every patch and every update. I imagine that's because there's apparently only been 30 patches, and I guess they've been slow and they've probably not added a ton of content. So, yeah, there should have been a little bit more hype, considering how much hype goes around in the video game industry in general. Let's see.
Rexar versus Jane.
The Raspberry Pi 4 came out, and one of the things that they were able to announce on that is that for the Sega Genesis, the NES, and things of that first generation, or arguably maybe second generation PC game consoles, the run ahead when enabled, which is a feature in the emulation, is so fast and so good on the Raspberry Pi 4 that you have less latency than you would have if you were playing it on an original system plugged into the standard CRT TV that you would have been using back then. So the games were pretty much designed to assume that there'd be a certain number of microseconds, milliseconds of latency and delay, and the emulation can go faster than that, which inherently means you don't need a fancy controller. You never really did. You don't need something that promises zero latency controls. You don't need any special super powerful computer to emulate those consoles. Now, in all fairness, eventually as you get up to the Nintendo 64, there are going to be instances of some games running a little slower and having a little bit more latency. The Nintendo 64 in particular on a Raspberry Pi 4 is a problem. Someone came out and made a whole Excel sheet of just games and seeing how they compare compared to the Raspberry Pi 4, and yeah, that it's major improvements. I'm seeing 200%, 150%, somewhere around that on most of the lower level consoles. Let's see, the number here I guess would be the best one to show off on this spreadsheet, is just the average There you go. So, on average, according to the one test they ran, the Nintendo Entertainment System got a 209.5% increase in frames per second. So, it went from about 30 to 60 frames and maxing out at 60, unless you go higher, and some of them are 100 frames per second. For the Super NES, 148.2 frames per second. For the Game Boy Advanced, that's 155.8. I imagine the Game Boy Advanced emulator runs regular Game Boy games too. Not that that really would be a challenge. Now, for the Nintendo 64, you're only getting a 68.6% increase, but on a Raspberry Pi 4, that is the difference between several games not being playable and games actually being reasonable to play on the Raspberry Pi. Like, because you really are going to have to pick and choose the games on the Nintendo 64. For the PlayStation 1 emulation, it's 109.4% increase, and for the Game Boy Color, it's an 86.4% frames per second percentage increase. So major improvements. I still wouldn't recommend getting a Raspberry Pi 4 right now and trying to install RetroPie on it and get it all to work. It's going to take probably 6 months until all the software is fully programmed and ready to go, and there is suspicion and some hints that there might be an 8GB of RAM version instead of the 4GB RAM version, which would be $55. So you might end up spending $75 for 8GB. That might allow you to potentially give 2GB of video RAM to the Raspberry Pi, and that might significantly increase the experience. Yeah, having more video RAM might be way more helpful than having more computer RAM on old game emulation. Although, you probably will do perfectly fine on most old games with if you split it to 1 or 2 gigabytes of video RAM and 2 gigabytes of just regular computer RAM. So also, the Raspberry Pi 4 first run might be a little buggy. I have no evidence to that fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if they found that there was something slightly wrong, something overheating, something coming a little bit loose. So I'd give it a couple weeks. I'd give it a couple months before I got one. And frankly, you could certainly do pretty well with a Raspberry Pi 3 still. It's just because it's not as good as the Raspberry Pi 4 doesn't mean that there's no reason whatsoever to get one. Particularly if you're getting a decent discount on them. Moving on, Gamasutra has this article. I think we talked about this before. My friend Pedro has sold over 250,000 copies in 1 week. That's a major amount of success. It's rather surprising. I don't feel like my friend Pedro is particularly doing a great job advertising or hyping itself, if I was to guess, but apparently I'm not in the know because they seem to be succeeding pretty well. Alright, this.
I wonder what this does.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
Then in the turn. Moving on, next story. Gamatsu has an article. Compile Heart launches Escape Countdown website. Compile Heart talks to a dead console. Let's see. Now, Compile Heart, as my understanding, makes like visual novel games. So them doing a horror escape visual novel doesn't make a lot of sense. So I have no idea what this is. Just a weird commercial. So yeah, I have no idea what's going on with that one, but whatever.
Quickly.
It's that.
Unity. Precision.
Seriously?
Perfection.
That was annoying. More news about Sony. Gamatsu has a industry thing. Sony Interactive Entertainment, that's the PlayStation division, is considering game company acquisition. This is really just an example of them doing what Microsoft has been doing for the past couple years. So they're just following, I guess at this point, I would say Microsoft is either positioned to be the leader in the console market, or excluding Nintendo, doing its own thing, or is the leader in the console market. The idea, though, of Sony acquiring anybody would be super annoying, because Sony has been terrible with their exclusives and just never letting their exclusives come to PC. So anything bought by Sony means none of their games are ever coming to PC. So I would find that infuriating and be upset. There is definitely also some questions about what companies would really want to be acquired by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and as it is now. So this is, I guess, potentially the beginning of a story if some acquisitions actually happen. But I guess if acquisitions actually never do occur, then it's at best just a talking point that somebody said. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Breen Origins, which is clearly a asset flip first person shooter. You can tell by the background, you can tell by the lack of people and the lack of polish on the textures. There's nothing of interest here. Early access discounted to $5.39, English only, and they're apparently selling ammo drop in-app purchases. And maybe better described as out-of-app purchases. Let's see.
Well played.
Next game we have is a game called A Maze in Citadel, which there's been a series of bad games called A Maze that I don't think are from this developer. This actually looks like it's slightly better designed dungeon crawler, but again, feels kind of asset flippy, feels kind of generic, feels like it might be a VR game, but if it isn't, then it just looks ugly. It's $11.99, a bunch of languages supported. Yeah, I don't see enough visual polish to this game to make me want to put it on the fall list. Meanwhile, I'm losing, so let's focus in here. Shaman or Warlock? Let's see. We have Zoo Warlock or Murloc Shaman. Let's try Zoo Warlock. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Investigator, The Case of the Big Crime. This looks like a kid's point-and-click adventure game. I suppose it is worth mentioning that over this weekend would have been the weekend before 4th of July, the Independence Day for the United States. So maybe that's why less games are coming out. Although 4th of July sales happen all the time in the United States, so it would have been a fine time to release new games. The only other argument why nothing would be released right now would be because it's because it's in the middle of a Steam sale, but that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Let's see. This looks like there might be a game here. I would want to see some reviews. This might just be a troll or a cartoon or something that they turned into a game. $4.99 English only. I'll put this on the fall list. Yeah, and Canada Day is like July 2nd or July 1st, so that's their independence, but I doubt many people would care about that other than Canadians. So there was really not a great reason for this.
Astounding.
This next game on Steam is called Kingdom of Lies, and it's tagged nudity and sexual content, and it's just MS Paint graphics with a topless devil character, and above that it looks like it's just a top-down asteroids game. It's $3.99. It's clearly some kind of troll game by a troll developer. It's English only. There's nothing here worth looking at or playing. It just looks horrible. Yeah, so there really isn't a great excuse for why so many games didn't come out, or why I'm not seeing so many games. I did go through the recently released games on Steam instead of using what's on Steam's Twitter feed, and yes, there were a few games I saw there that seemed like they were things that maybe I hadn't seen. So it is possible that what's on Steam's Twitter feed is not 100% accurate. It's always been the case that I am just getting a random sampling of games. I think it clearly is a random sampling and not some kind of curated sampling. And I don't think I've ever missed any kind of important indie or AAA game to come out. What I think happens a lot of times is there's just so much manipulation going on that people put their games up and then they take them down and they put them up, or they put them up and they're not really for sale, or so what it looks like on Steam storefront versus what the actuality of the scenario is, as far as did this game actually come to Steam, is it actually available for purchase, things like that are probably major factors. Next we have a game here called Don't Go in the Woods. This looks like it's a top-down RPG Maker style game, although it doesn't 100% look like it's even made in RPG Maker. The art I can see in this one screenshot does not look interesting. Yeah, it looks like MS Paint drawing. $9.99 English only. Another game which I have no interest in. Alright. Let's see.
Stop copying me! Stop copying me!
And in the turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Ring City, which seems to be some kind of game built around putting rings on your finger. So effectively it's kind of like a collectible card game, except for instead of cards you've got rings. It feels like a weird Chinese game to me. I have to applaud a unique idea there. For building a strategy and playing around that idea, but effectively this is just kind of a dungeon crawler game.
Astounding.
Early access, $6.49, English and Chinese. Yeah, it is a weird Chinese game. You know what, I'm going to put this on the follow list. If they can get this out of early access and make something actually interesting there, something worth playing for a couple hours, that would be a weird enough example of something different. It's not your standard asset flip first person shooter. Alright, we'll try Shaman this time. So
Thrall versus Valera.
So with Double Fine being acquired
Doomhammer.
by Microsoft, we're starting to see them shed some dead weight, I suppose is what you would call it, or at least adopt some new policies. So this person at Valiant Cheese has been the forum and Discord volunteer mod captain, and he is stepping down this week after 7 years of supporting and working with Double Fine in various capacities. I don't know if he was ever actually an employee getting paid by Double Fine, but it does kind of go to show that's a weird transition, and it very possibly may be the beginning of a lot of things we see like this. I would not be surprised within a year of when they announced that they were getting acquired. So by this time next E3, I would 100% not be surprised if there's at least 2 or 3 major high management people who are no longer working at Double Fine, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are several low-level employees who just throughout the course of the next year start getting other jobs at other places because they don't want to work for Microsoft. And I think Microsoft is a little bit of a nicer company to work for, particularly if you're just a video game that Microsoft owns. But I still wouldn't be surprised if there's a level of cutthroatness that exists in Microsoft job that people might not appreciate. Let's see.
Elements guide me.
So yeah, I could see reasons why you wouldn't want to work for Microsoft, but I could also see reasons why people would just get other jobs. This, this, this.
Elements guide me. Job's done.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Remedy has acquired the publishing rights to Alan Wake and may take it multi-platform. So Alan Wake, I believe, was pulled from sale on PC a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, because of music licensing rights. I covered Alan Wake on my channel. There was DLC that I didn't care to play because I really didn't like Alan Wake 1. The spin-off title American's Nightmares I haven't gotten around to playing. Yeah, they've acquired the publishing rights, and certainly
What to do?
somebody's asking me if I speak French. N-O-N, which is French for now.
Shall we make a storm?
Job's done.
Now he's asking me in French, où est sur or où est sur mother? I don't even know what that means. Sounds like he's asking me if I'm a male or female. What do you live? Alright, this guy's just gonna be removed. Let's see, remove friends. You don't need to be chatting with people. You know, don't need that kind of distractions while playing. I've got plenty of other distractions. Alright. This. And this. So yeah, I feel like the mainstream video game journalists loved Alan Wake way too much, and it's now just a hugely overhyped game that's not really that good. Maybe America's Nightmare fixes a lot of problems of Alan Wake 1, but in a retrospective, when I played it, I think in 2019, maybe I played it in 2018, it totally wasn't something that I enjoyed, mostly because it's this horror shooter game where you don't have very many bullets, you can't kill anything until you shine an extremely slow flashlight on these shadow creatures to destroy their shadow shield, to then shoot them with a gun and maybe kill them. It's heavily influenced by Twin Peaks, but I don't think, even if it as a game that's heavily influenced by Twin Peaks, it grabs the important parts of something like Twin Peaks. I think it just kind of copies those ideas. So yeah, I didn't like Alan Wake. I don't think I'll probably ever play American Nightmare. I think I do own it. Gamma Sutra has an article we already talked about today. The Chinese government revokes the business license of the publisher of Devotion, Indivent, the Chinese publisher of that game. Now, I assume Red Candle Games, the developer of that, of Detention and Devotion, has no problem self-publishing anywhere else in the world. But clearly this is a first example of how the Chinese government has used their "you have to be licensed to sell video games in China" policy as a political tool, as a way of punishing and silencing someone who made a political statement that the Chinese government did not like, and in my opinion sent a bunch of Twitter review bots to review bomb a game, the game Devotion, because they didn't like the statement. Moving on, Gematsu has a Shanti 5 opening animation produced by Studio Trigger. So here's some, I guess you call these pencil sketches? I haven't ever seen pencil sketches colored in before. Interesting. Yeah. Alright, so there's gonna be a animation with Shanti and her pirate, like, enemy. Studio Trigger also made Kill La Kill and Little Witch Academia, both of which have video games out or coming out. Oops, I played that out of order. I should have done that, then played the other card. But whatever. How are we gonna do this? So mostly what you take away from that is just the fact that there is a Shanti 5 being made. And I'd really like to play the Wonder Boy series and the Wonder Boy, Monster Boy, Monster World series, and the Shanti series. Unfortunately, I've just not really had a lot of extra couple $100 or two to collect those specific games and start going down that series. Or even pick one. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Study shows loot boxes linked with problematic gambling and minors. Surprise, surprise to no one. We really don't need studies to tell us the obvious. That yes, when something feels like gambling and invokes all the feelings of gambling, it is going to lead a percentage of people down the path of actually real-world gambling. Now, the only argument I can even make against some statement like that is that perhaps there is a natural tendency in humans to gamble. It seems like that's true. Every society has had gambling in it in one form or another, and gaming in it in one form or another. So it does seem like something that we just naturally occur to, which inherently tells us that as a human species, we don't really value fairness or equity in any real way, because if we did, we wouldn't be acting out in ways to try to get an advantage that is larger than anyone else. So yeah, there's something very primal about gambling, I'm sure, but video games should not encourage or lock into that primal concept and push people into becoming just completely consumed and obsessed with gambling like mechanics. And that's coming from somebody who likes to play gacha games but draws the line on actually spending money. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has the same story here. Sony considers turning to studio acquisitions as competition rises. Really don't have anything to say about that story though until they actually acquire somebody, and then I might get a little mad depending on what they acquired. Like if they acquired Platinum Games, that would be really infuriating. If they acquired Rare, well, they couldn't acquire Rare because Microsoft already acquired them, but if they acquired Square Enix, that would probably suck. Yeah, they'd probably think about acquiring a Japanese company before a Western company. Next game we have on Steam is called Survive VR Castle Defenders. This is a stand in one place and shoot things tower defense style game. It does not look very polished or well designed, although it does seem to have some decent asset flips in its enemy department. It's just not that interesting a game. It's $4.83 with an 18% discount, and yeah, it's not going on the fall list. Speaking of going nowhere, I can't help but feel like I am going absolutely nowhere with these games. Oh man. Let's see. It's a little frustrating. We're having day one blues and first day of the month blues with victories, when really we should be able to succeed better than this, even on my European account. Let's see. Gamatsu has the Xbox Live Gold games for July. inside and let's see. Inside and Big Crown Showdown for the Xbox One, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and Meet the Robinsons for Xbox 360. Which I assume you get all 4 if you have an Xbox One because they're backward compatible. I would assume that much. So, yeah, the Games with Gold program, not particularly the best, but good enough that it makes it a value add on top of the paying for online play. Although you probably shouldn't have to pay for online play, and it would be really nice if in the next Microsoft launch they just said everybody gets, with the purchase of the hardware of the Microsoft Scarlett, everybody gets a lifetime of online play that is revocable only if you violate the terms of service. Because, yeah, online play, not something you really should have been ever charging for. But I wouldn't hold my breath to see that happen. Here's another article. I already talked about this. LibRetro. RetroArch Run Ahead and Raspberry Pi 4. The results are in. So, this with the Mario Kart Advanced, it was 5 frames ahead, so it was making 5 frames for every 1 frames being run. For the Super Mario Advance, it was 2 frames ahead. Mario Kart Advance 2 frames ahead with at major frame rates of 100 plus frames per second on some of these games. So the run ahead, when properly configured, eliminates any concern for latency. It's better than the console's latency, better than on a real CRT cathode ray tube, or a big TV, old school TV. Put a fork in is done. All this on a $50 worth of tech. Although, arguably, the Raspberry Pi 4 is not $50 worth of tech, depending on how you configure it. I forgot to play. Because you're going to have to buy keyboard, mouse, a case, a power plug. Probably would do good with some kind of passive heat cooler on it, unless that's built into the case. You're going to get nickel and dimed quite a bit on a Raspberry Pi 4 or any Raspberry Pi. And so it's worth knowing that too. So you really are going to end up spending closer to $120 on it, and not $50, and regardless of what RAM configuration you did. Games Done Quick wrapped, and they got over $3 million. I believe was what they said, if I can find it. And here we go. Here's the final total: $3,003,889. So they got a lot of money. Overall, Games Done Quick was fine, regardless of its stupid gender fluid Sonic character that they put out, which oddly doesn't even seem like it's being highlighted here. So feels like they dropped that like really quick, as they saw nobody cared or thought that was interesting. Games Done Quick, you can see a lot of people in the audience, a lot of people that are very happy to be there and like each other. It's still a decent event that gets way more money than any other event. The only one thing it has a problem with, I would say, is the fact that it seems like it is run by people who aren't the smartest and push kind of ridiculous rules and kind of a ridiculous SJW propaganda forward when everybody else is just trying to have a fun time. And eventually that is going to come to a head, but it could take many years until it does. Eventually, people are going to get tired of games done quick and their BS. The people in charge is BS. And the corporate attitude that they try to take. And there will be this spin-off group, maybe 2 spin-off groups, and they'll spin off and they'll be smaller. But GDC probably will always still exist. Although, not to invoke the name of she who should never be named, Anita Sarkeesian, like, Feminist Frequency seems to have gone bankrupt, in particular because they were getting corporate donations, and so if Games Done Quick is getting a bunch of corporate donations, that might dry up real quick, and that might bankrupt the company too. Although, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why Feminist Frequency failed, certainly, but relying on corporate donations is not that good. It's kind of ironic and ridiculous, and it makes a little bit more sense that Feminist Frequency or Anita Sarkeesian was telling CD Projekt Red that they should have hired her as a consultant, and then less than 2 weeks later she's filing for bankruptcy because she's got no money. So that clearly must have been her last ditch effort. It's not even a well-timed effort though. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Falcom shares first screenshots of the next Trails game. Teases PS4 ports for previous titles. So this is the Trails RPG games. It's like a somewhat railroad RPG, I guess. I thought the Trails games were already on PC though, so maybe there's some versions of the original few that just haven't come out. And yeah, it's just an anime RPG. The characters seem to be a little bit taller and not going for that younger moe look, which can always be appreciated, certainly. Two. And kill one of these. Yeah, the odds of me winning are low.
From nothing, power.
Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. SteamWatch developer relaunches game to circumvent, quote, inaccurate reviews. This is this is the game that was originally an early access indie open world game by the name Greylaw Season 1, which maybe we can open a link to that, has now been relaunched as Witch Sun Elora's Origins. Sid Alpha, I believe, already talked about this shenanigans that is going on. Yep, he has a whole dirty devs on it. Basically, they're trying to manipulate the Steam web store in a way so that they don't have to show that they've been in early access for a very long time and that their experience did not go well. and so people were not super happy with it. Let's try Druid, I guess. We're gonna end up just wrapping up, and I'm gonna end up playing a lot off screen. So here you can see Greylaw Season 1 is mixed reviewed. Came out February 21st, 2019 as early access. Now it says English language is not supported. He probably changed it so it said that. But
the wild.
so this is what the game was. There's really not anything terrible about this game. This is totally a game I would have put on the follow list. He's tried to remove as much information as possible about whether it's single player, multiplayer, and things like that. This does not look so bad that it doesn't deserve some coverage. This really is just a case of the developer trying to manipulate and cheat his way. So here's the new game, Witchsong Elor's Origins, which has not done him any favors because now people are going to intentionally just review the game negatively to show that they relaunched the game again. And this is in early access still.
The pleasure is mine.
And yeah, so let's see. There's just like no way that this is something that Steam itself should allow. It would be the equivalent of a YouTuber putting up a video on one channel and then getting it massively ratioed and voted down, and then taking down that video, deleting that channel and starting another channel, and putting the video back up and saying, well, those first reviews were inaccurate. I don't think there's a significant amount of inaccurate reviews that have happened to either one of these games. And you just gotta live with bad reviews, and you have to live with inaccurate reviews. Anybody who has any kind of business will tell you that Yelp is basically a protection racket and a shakedown thing, where there are reviews that either are getting put against your company from your competitors or from Yelp directly, who can tell, and those reviews are completely 100% accurate. You could like be working at a restaurant and they'll say the salads here are awful, and that restaurant may have never in their life ever served any salads at all. Or I've heard reviews where they say this employee Brent was such a jerk, and then people ask about it and they go, we've never had anybody work here by the name Brent. Yeah, so that's just a thing. You could try to sue Yelp. You could try to sue people who put fake reviews on Yelp, sure. Or you can just focus on doing your job and realize that there really isn't that many people that are going to look at reviews anyways. If you manage to make a good game, the good reviews will boil to the top, and that's the one thing they really aren't focusing on.
Come dance to my song.
It takes a level of thick skin to make anything, and unfortunately there's a lot of thin-skinned people out there, and I wouldn't even really say that that's something new. In the old days, the thin-skinned people were the people claiming other people were doing witchcraft, or and getting their neighbors hung by a tree, a noose, for false accusations or just slight insults. Although duels, I think, helped that a little bit too. If you could just challenge a person to a duel, that might solve a lot of conflicts a little bit easier than lawsuits do these days. Although, logically thinking, lawsuits are designed to be way more fair than duels were supposed to be. What duels could have ever been. Alright. Play this. Play this. What are we gonna do with this?
I wonder.
Death Rattle, Summon, Trance. And play.
I fight.
And then return. Next we have a game on Steam here called Attract Fragments 5. Whatever this game is supposed to be, it's just super dark screenshot syndrome.
I want you.
Doesn't look that interesting otherwise. It's $7.49 discounted English only. It seems like it is just a black and white and shadow hack and slash game. But yeah. There's nothing here. Let's see. Minions +1/+1. Give your minions +1/+1.
I fight.
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called Glad Valicus Cyberband. This looks like a Russian troll game. And if it isn't that, then it's just a little piece of garbage platformer game with no real interest. English is not supported, $2.99, Russian, yeah. No surprise there. Right, we're starting to see more Russian troll games again. TechRaptor has an article here. Fantasy Strike brings streamlined fighting to the PS4, Switch, PC on July 25th. This is clearly a fighting game. I feel like the game Fantasy Strike, though, had been in development on Steam for a very long time. But maybe I'm thinking of a different game. I don't recognize these characters. There are quite a... No, I think I do recognize these characters. Yeah, I remember this character with the paintbrush in particular. This game had been in development for a very, very long time, and I think it's still early access on PC, so maybe it's finally finished. But I think also it is a fighting mode that is not really like a regular fighting game, so if you were to learn playing this fighting game, you probably are learning just all the wrong mechanics. I don't know, I guess I need to come back to this and think about putting it back on the follow list and thinking about it. Alright, we'll try one more druid thing since we got a victory. You can see here that Fantasy Strike is very positive. It's still early access though for $15.99. Seems really ridiculous for it to be in early access as a fighting game from 2017. And then it's coming to consoles. I mean, how can you come to consoles as an early access game? Apparently you can do that now. But whatever. Hey, we got a quick victory. Which, at the very least, that buys me a little bit of time to work on getting rogue or warrior victories. Let's go and switch over to the Asian account. We might as well show it off. And launch up into that. While we're waiting for that to load, we have a game on Steam called Just Sleep, Meditate, Focus, and Relax. I don't think I need a meditative application on Steam. If I was going to use something like that, that almost certainly needs to be on a cell phone where it's more portable. This, to me, looks like it's just an asset flip game. low effort game trying to sell itself as a meditative game. It's $1.99, English only is the language. And yes, we know the cards have changed. Let's see. Warlock, secrets, and things that cost more than 6 mana. Let's go ahead and open this pack. It might be a while until we get the new cards. Well, no, I just got Gift of the Wild, and that was a new card. So much for that thought. So only 4 of those cards are now gonna be dusted. Alright, we'll play one more game of Warlock, I think, and then we'll be done. Let's try ranked at rank 23. Next we have a game on Steam called Battle Droid T1. It looks like a Windows 95 game. It looks totally like garbage. Like, I could see as a student making a game that looks like this and then hoping that there's some way to take my experience from a classroom, college level education to change these graphics and the physics behind it so you get something closer to the game Celeste. Which, by the way, I saw Tool speedrun of Celeste, and once again, every time I see somebody play Celeste, I don't think I could ever play that game. It's just the new Super Meat Boy game, just something hardcore platformer game that I don't think I can play. In all honesty, though, even if you were to make a game, if you're making a game that looks like this, you're probably making a game that could not be fixed and made to look like a modern game. Yeah. And certainly, though, even if this was a student project, it has no business on Steam. It has no business selling itself for $4.74 discounted. And yeah, it's supporting English. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that if there was going to be any curation on Steam, this is the kind of thing that you could look at really quickly and say, look, this is just not going to succeed for you. We don't need these kind of games on the storefront. Although maybe Steam does need these kind of games on their storefront. When you look at the sales, maybe if the next big Steam sale said buy this game that has less than 1,000 people have purchased it, you'll get a bonus. Maybe that's where we should go with it. Like, look for the hidden gems, but you're going to end up trying a bunch of terrible games in the process. Particularly if the Steam sale said you could buy this game if it has less than 1,000 people who have purchased it, but then you can trade it in for store credit if you don't like it. If there was just a try this game before you buy idea, that would be great. And they already have the 2-hour automatic refund issue, so if they just expanded that to be more around the idea of we want to encourage people to try games that nobody else has tried, that there might be some hidden gems found, but then there would probably be a lot of terrible games too. Heck, if Valve came out with a sale and said vote for the top 100 worst games on Steam to be removed from Steam, I think that might be more entertaining. Moving on, though, we have a game here called Cosmo Chaser, which is just a shoot 'em up around a 3D column. It doesn't look particularly interesting, or there's a bit of a thought of a gameplay mechanic here, but it really doesn't seem like there's anything else. And it's a shoot 'em up, so I don't really play shoot 'em ups. $8.49 discounted, English only. I think if you were going to play shoot 'em ups too, you probably don't want to play one that isn't a Japanese shoot 'em up. That would be my guess. Yeah. Because I think the Japanese probably have a lock on shoot 'em ups. We've been talking about RetroArch and Lubretro a lot today because they had several announcements. But also their other announcement, the RetroArch Disc project, has been begun or is making progress. It's coming very soon. So you'll be able to run real games off CD-ROMs within RetroArch, starting with Sega CD, Sega Saturn, and PlayStation 1 and 3DO. It's a little bit harder to have a driver for what would have probably be a USB or a SATA just standard CD-ROM or Blu-ray reader or DVD-ROM to read those kind of discs. Of course, most people would kind of quickly realize that there's not a lot of reason why you would want to use run a game off a disc when you could instead just have images on a USB key or on a hard drive. But there might be a few reasons why you would want to do that. They're mostly nostalgic reasons, though. A CD image is the same as a ROM, effectively, in most instances.
Behold the tools of creation.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Mystery Masterpiece: The Moonstone, which looks to me says it's a mouse-only game. This looks like this is a hidden object game, if I was to guess. An adventure game. Seems to be pretty old too. It's not widescreen. It's $3.74, which is the right price for a 3D object game from HH Games, English and German, but still not going to be playing any hidden object games. Let's see. Play this. Do this. I discarded my two best cards. Here we have a game on Steam called The Three Sisters Looking for Their Back Home, and probably Chinese lettering here. Clearly this is a low effort asset flip. I guess it's a puzzle game. It's awful. It's just awful looking. 99 cents, English and Japanese. Alright, it's a low effort Japanese game. We don't get a lot of those. Although we're starting to see more of them. I guess maybe that's the beginnings, though, is that you're gonna have to see some bad low effort Japanese games before Japanese companies decide to start selling on Steam. Let's see. Gematsu has an article here. Pokemon Sword and Shield producer addresses the National Pokedex drama. Quote, even if a specific Pokemon is not available, that does not mean it will not appear in future games. End quote. That's pretty much, it seems like, all they said. This isn't really a response where the producer says, we've heard your concerns and we are going to bring back the National Pokedex. It's more of a statement of, we're going to do what we planned on doing anyways, and that's that. So, yeah, Sword and Shield not going to get a National Pokedex. What will be really amazing is if within 6 months of its release of Sword and Shield, somebody hacks in a mod to return all the Pokemon, and it turns out to be super easy, because that's what I imagine will exactly happen.
The forest fights back.
I don't feel like anybody really thought that the Pokemon were going away forever, and this was the beginning of a whole new collection. My suggestion that if they were going to do something like this, they set it like 1,000 years in the future, or 1,000 years in the past, or even 100 years in the future and past, might explain some things. And then you could have a full reboot and a full restart. But there's kind of no good way to do it and have it in the same time frame. Let's see.
Put this apple on your head.
As you command.
We have a game here on Steam called Galaxis, which looks like it's a massive multiplayer fly around space 4X style game. Doesn't look very visually polished. It's early access for $29.99. English only is the language. Yep. Nothing here makes me want to play this at all.
Stop calling me! Stop calling me! Catch!
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Zombie Death Race Feeding Frenzy, where it seems like you're playing as a zombie piranha, and taking the idea of the 2D Feeding Frenzy fish game to heart. There might actually be a game here, although visually it seems a little unpolished. Why the fish needs to be a zombie, though, I don't know. When Feeding Frenzy kind of did a fine job of just having the people eat it. It's 99 cents. It's VR capable, but not VR required. It's also available on Android, which is confusing. It's like Pac-Man in the sea, they say.
Almost out of time.
Well, I'll put this Zombie Death Race Feeding Frenzy on the follow list. I kind of question I kind of question though the whether this is going to get enough reviews. But at 99 cents, it might be all right. That being said, there's very few games that I've ever bought at 99 cents, and even fewer that I've ever covered at 99 cents, because they just don't have any relevance, and I'd much rather play a $5 or $10 game, even if it's not as good. Let's see.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Crazy Beats Junction, which seems to have some random anime character asset flips in it, but overall, it seems like what the game is it's just a driving game, or parking game, or pattern game. Like, yeah, it's some kind of rhythm game with people just hitting the buttons. It's early access for $4.99, English and Japanese. I don't think that there's really a game here, but I'll put it on the fall list and see if maybe there is something to this. But we really have been scraping the bottom of the barrel, feels like.
You
And see, we only have like 3 more games to look at. So we have a game on Steam here called Tank Brawl 2, which looks like you drive around the tank. And that's never super interesting to me. Seems like you're just driving around the tank, intentionally trying to destroy things. And sometimes you get to shoot at other things. It's coming soon. It's not even got a release date, so that definitely is not making it to the fall list. And do this, I guess. Do this.
Who shall be next?
So, where does that leave us? Off screen, I'm going to have to get one more victory with the Warlock and either play a bunch of secrets or play more minions that cost 10 more minions that cost 5 or more. We have 2 more games, so let's just cover these quickly and then that'll be the end of the stream. So we have this game called Ski Jump, which looks like it's a ski jumping simulator. It doesn't look amazingly polished, and it seems like they have ridiculous advertisements around it and ridiculous art around it. I don't know if I could really call this asset flips though, as much as just a weird artistic style. It's early access, it's $6.99, it's a VR game. So I'll put it on the fall list because I don't think I've seen any other VR ski jumping game, although I don't know if too many people would like that, particularly people who may have a fear of heights. And then the final game we have to look at here is Fruit Postal Service, which looks like a asset flip game. Doesn't look interesting at all. Free to play, multiplayer only, so I wouldn't cover it anyways. Alright, so we can get that, remove that easily. And that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. Are there any games bundles? No, they're still, I guess, waiting for the Steam Summer Sale. Yeah, I guess they're just waiting until the summer sale ends. We have an article that just came up. I'm now on my Twitter feed looking for any other news that would be interesting. There's a new PlayStation VR game called Scrapper First Strike that's coming. And let's see. I'm just scrolling down to see if there's any other bits of news. And we still are in that post E3 slump. Okay, so here's an article to end on. Russian defense minister claims Metal Gear series is used by US to manipulate the youth. Now what's weird about this is the Metal Gear series is made by a Japanese company, Konami, and the Japanese creators. So I don't know how that would be able to use to manipulate the youth. In particular, considering how I think the people in the Metal Gear series are kinda against the US government as much as anything else. So this seems to be a rather ridiculous claim on the face of it. But yeah, you know what? Ridiculous claims by politicians happen all the time. So take it for that. Also, more interesting to me, the ScumVM put out a post, Quest for Glory with a bit of Hoyle games. So they now can support They now have support for Quest for Glory Shadows of Darkness, aka Quest for Glory 4, Hoyle Classic Games, Hoyle Bridge, Hoyle Children's Collection, and then Hoyle Solitaire, both the CDs and floppy version of Quest for Glory. So more games being supported by ScumVM, even though they don't use the script creation utility for Maniac Mansion in any way. They've long since programmed all the games that use that to run pretty much flawless. So now it's just a matter of alt-tabbing to my recording software, and we are done. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Remember, the Steam sale is still going on. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.